video is going to give more detailed information about each individual instrument. I'll have a couple of friends help me along in this endeavor that I've asked to help out, some students and some other faculty. So we'll have a lot of fun. We'll go more in depth on each one of the instruments and make sure that you know how each one creates sound and some individual characteristics of the horn, and so you can make the best choice when we get back together in the fall. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or contact me through Messenger on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and I'll be happy to walk you through that process of selecting an instrument that best suits you. So enjoy the video, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Flute. Hi everybody, the first instrument we're going to go through is flute. Now this is an instrument that's in the woodwind family. I'm going to take the head joint off here first to kind of show you. The way that the flute makes sound is that you're splitting air on the bottom. Now you'll notice that this flute has seen better days. I don't let students play because once you have dents here, it kind of plays out of tune. So this is my demonstration model. So don't take this as the example of a nice horn. Most of my students rent flutes, rent-to-own program, which I'll go through in video 3. So, but I just want to go through an overview. So when you blow on the flute, there's two different tones. You make a low tone and a high tone. You cover the end of the flute. You're blowing straight across like you would on a Coke bottle to make a sound with a nice relaxed embouchure. And just let the air separate the lips. And so when you do that, you got to get the air centered on there, and you can make a high note too. Always fun. So if you can play the mouthpiece, you can play the horn. Now the interesting thing about flute is that it has a bunch of keys for all woodwinds that kind of float above the holes in the instrument, which you can kind of see here. There's holes in the instrument and the keys float above, and they're supported by these rods. So you have to be careful not to dent them. And when you hold the flute, you've got a single finger for each one of these keys. Some will have some other keys in there, so I'm holding it like this. And I can hold it with no finger. One of the first things you're going to learn is how to hold it with no fingers, just your thumb and your chin. And that way you can wiggle all the keys and not have the instrument fall out of your hand. So I teach you how to put it together. So when you play it, and I'll have Miss Weddington show you this next clip because she's a much better flute player and she's pretty awesome. Hey everybody, the next instrument I'm going to show you is a clarinet. Now the clarinet originally was made out of wood, kind of why they call them woodwinds. But instead of a flute where you're splitting air on the far side of the tone hole, here you're splitting air on the reed. So if I take this off, now the clarinet comes in multiple pieces, and I'll take off a couple of them right here. One of the things that takes a little bit of time is figuring how to put the clarinet together, but I show you how to do that carefully and safely. So it does come apart and fit in a nice small case. It's easier to carry around. You can carry it on a bus and even fit it in a backpack. So it has, just like the flute, it has keys, but your fingers seal the holes instead of a pad. You have some pads down here like the flute, but you also have some open holes that you can cover with your fingers. And I show you how to do that. Now, you have a reed that's on here. That is what you're splitting the air on. So your teeth are anchored on top of the mouthpiece. And I showed you in the other video. If you can blow air out by keeping your teeth on here, this part of the soft part where your lip meets your chin, cushioning the thumbnail right here, and you blow out like you're trying to blow up your head like a balloon and no air leaks out, then you're sealing around the mouthpiece very nicely, and you could play a woodwind instrument like a clarinet or a saxophone. So when I play this, it's going to sound kind of like a fire alarm, I know. I could go on, but I won't. That's basically the sound that you're wanting on your clarinet mouthpiece. So if you make a sound when we get back in the fall and you make a high sound like that, then clarinet might be for you, because you have to have a good high tone like that. So when you put the mouthpiece on here and you cover up the right holes, that sound changes beautifully through this horn, and there's a lower range and there's a higher range. So let me just adjust this a little bit. So that's a clarinet. You can play high and you can play low. It's a lyrical instrument, has a lot of melodies. You have individual keys just like the flute and saxophone for your notes, and you support it with your thumb. It's a lighter instrument. If you want to play saxophone, for example, but you have small hands and you just need another year to grow from 6th grade to 7th grade, we'll start you on a clarinet because the fingering system's the same, the embouchure's the same, and then as you grow into the saxophone, you could possibly go to saxophone or stay on the clarinet. So it's a wonderful melodic instrument, and it's a beautiful sound. Hi everybody, the next instrument I have is the alto saxophone. We start all our beginners on an alto saxophone, similar to this. It's like the clarinet, but a little bit bigger. Not as many parts, just the head, the neck, and the body of the saxophone. And you have a strap which also goes around your neck to help support the instrument. You have a thumb rest here which pushes it out. I recommend for all my students to get a better neck strap, not a thin one like this, but one with padding so it helps your neck. It has a mouthpiece, which I don't have for this horn, but I have my friend Danny who's going to play a little excerpt for you on saxophone. He's one of my high school saxophone players, so I'll let Danny take it from here. So the saxophone is the most modern of the band instruments. It was invented in the 1880s. And again, like the clarinet, it has keys, but more like the flute and the flute fingering system, each of the pads covers the holes. You can kind of see the holes there, and the pads cover those keys. So saxophone is a popular instrument. We also have tenor and bari saxophones. We're getting them into the middle school now, but we save those for our 8th grade and 7th graders. So all beginners who want to play saxophone will start on saxophone. You have to be saxophone is one of the easiest instruments to make a sound on, but one of the hardest to sound really nice on. So it takes a good skilled player to play a quality saxophone sound. And so if you think you're up to that challenge, then I encourage you to do saxophone. We don't have any school instruments in alto saxophones, so this will be an instrument that you would have to rent to own or purchase on your own, so just so you know. The school provides baritone saxophones, and we are getting a tenor saxophone for our highest level students, but that will be through the director's choice on upgrading to those instruments. The saxophone is the instrument that you want to play, and this is a good choice.
Hi, so my name is Jonah Nichols. I play trumpet for 7th grade right now, and I think it's pretty great for me because you can play stuff like Star Wars. And stuff like Hound of the Baskervilles. and I've never heard of that, but it's actually pretty great. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's basically it. I say you should join band for just the sake of it. You know, it's awesome. It's very fun to do.
So in the brass family, and once I go through one, I'll go through more because the principle's the same. You're basically buzzing your lips on the mouthpiece, not inside the mouthpiece, but on. Your lips kind of rest flat and gently across the surface of the mouthpiece. And so you can see some differences in the diameter or the size of the mouthpiece. Here's a low brass, and here's a French horn. And all the air in the French horn goes through that little tiny hole, and all the trombone air goes through there. So the size of the mouthpiece matters. So you have the high, and you have the low. All right. So if you can make that kind of buzzing sound, kind of gross, I know, but it's fun. Imagine a room of 30 of us all making sounds like that at the same time. It's interesting. So if you take the mouthpiece after that buzz and you put it on, open pipe. And as you can see, I'm anchoring the corner of the mouth here, and I'm letting the middle of the lip buzz. And that's kind of the sound I make. Not too tight, just enough surface tension on there just to create that buzz. Now you'll notice that a trumpet and most of the valve instruments have 3 valves, and what they do is they add little lengths of pipe, and that's how the notes go down. I'll demonstrate. So second is the smallest, first is the next, and third. So that's how you change notes. And so you can play many different notes with just your embouchure, changing the shape of the air and the amount of airflow and how the speed of the air. So in each valve combination, you have all these different notes. So that's a difference between woodwinds and brass, in that you can play multiple notes with the same fingering, but it's more to do with the embouchure control. So in a brass instrument, you have some exciting parts and fanfares, and you can make grandma cry from the beauty of your horn, or you can strike terror in your enemies if you want. There's a broad range of emotions of all our instruments, and some of the most bravado, energetic phrases are in the brass section. Very heroic sound. So if you like that, then maybe a brass instrument's for you. So the next instrument is my personal favorite because I'm a French horn player. And it's kind of the bumblebee of instruments as well. So a bumblebee, if you know or have heard this before, shouldn't be able to fly. It's so big, it shouldn't be really able to fly, but yet it does. So here is a French horn. It has the smallest hole in the mouthpiece. It has a bell almost the size of a tuba. And it has probably about 32 to 38 feet of pipe wrapped up in there, and you can see it all in there. And so this is my horn. This horn is very old, and it's in good shape, so students have to take care. We do have some school horns available, and some students do rent or obtain their own horn. So a French horn, you have this little tiny mouthpiece, and you take that sound and you put it in this big amplifier here. Very big range on there because of the big bell and the small embouchure. So it has 3 rotating valves. They actually turn to change. Air goes in the pipes. And this is a double horn, which I encourage my students to get, which means it has 2 layers of pipes. And that is controlled by the thumb key here. So you have an F horn in the key of F, and you have a B flat horn in the key of B flat. If you're looking for a scholarship instrument, this is the instrument to play. Has a lot of the main melodies in your orchestras. If you listen to Star Wars music, it's all over the place there. All that French horn. We have basically what we do is instead of starting most of our sixth graders who play French horn on French horn, we have them start on trumpet. And if they can play high notes on trumpet, then we can see if they want to move to French horn. So by January, we might have 1 or 2 French horn players in the sixth grade band if we can. And so we have limited number of these between the high school and middle school of horns, but I'm always encouraging students who are very good students or are willing to take care of a beautiful instrument, then French horn is the horn for you. Okay, so the next brass instrument that we have is the trombone. Now the trombone, some people will call the clown of the orchestra or the band. It's also one of our more slender instruments, and this is the slide, and it actually floats over the other slide. And this is how you change notes on trombone. And you can also have some really cool effects. And that's where it kind of, I think, gets the clown. It's the only instrument that really does the gliss as well as any other instrument because it has the slide. So, a lot of different sounds you can make on it. It's a pretty cool instrument. It's used in jazz bands and rock bands and marching band and orchestras and brass quintets. So it's a unique instrument. It's not heavy. It's actually very light, and it's a portable instrument because it is a slender case. So if you're looking for a challenge and you want to learn a creature that's a little bit different than all the other brass instruments, then trombone is the one for you. Now I will say this, that a lot of our students, some of our students, not a lot, but some of our students who want to play trumpet can't make a high enough buzz on the trumpet mouthpiece. And so then I'll recommend a low brass instrument for them. So for example, when we go mouthpiece testing in the fall, if this is the trumpet sound I want, and you can only go, then I'm going to say, hey, let's try a low brass instrument because that looks like it's going to be an easier fit for you. And actually, if you can play a song in the mouthpiece, then you can play it on the instrument. So that's just a part of the selection process. As we go through there, if you decide you want to do a brass instrument, we'll try you out on trumpet and low brass and see which one is best for you. I have no idea until we try, so we'll discover that together. Okay, everybody, so the last instruments that we have to go over in the brass family are the baritone or euphonium, same kind of instrument, and the tuba. So the baritone, sometimes called a tenor tuba, is just smaller than the tuba, and a lot of our sixth graders will begin on that, and then as they grow, they'll move to tuba. Or if I have a student who just can't play in the middle range of the low brass instead of trombone baritone, I might move them to a tuba if they have too loose lips and stuff like that. So we want to fit the instrument to the student where they'll be most successful. So if you can't play high on a low brass instrument, then maybe a tuba would be for you. And we'll probably only have like 1 tuba in the sixth grade band next year. We might have only 3 baritones in the sixth grade band next year. We might have 5 or 6 trombones. We might have 5 or 6 trumpets. So we try and match up the students to the instrument that they would like to play and what they're able to play. And usually it works out pretty well. So baritone is similar to trumpet in that it has 3 keys. I started playing baritone in 4th grade. I think it was about as big as the baritone. And then in 6th grade I moved to the French horn. So it's very similar to trumpet, but it's an octave lower in reeds and bass clef, just like the trombone. So it's a melodic instrument. It's a beautiful horn. In marching band, we have bell front baritones that they march with, so you don't have the slide. It's a little bit different creature than the trombone, but it's the same range and the same mouthpiece as trombone. So if you could play trombone, you could play baritone. Okay, so this is the tuba. This is the deepest brass instrument that we have in the band. In marching band, sometimes you'll see a sousaphone, which it wraps around the body and they march with that. So this is a concert tuba, same range, same mouthpiece. Now the mouthpiece is bigger than a trombone or a baritone, as you can see. Here's the trumpet mouthpiece to compare. So we usually reserve tuba for people who have a looser embouchure, who can really hit low notes well in the trombone and baritone, but they may not be able to reach those high notes. So tuba is a good source. So when they're buzzing the mouthpiece, it's a lot deeper, isn't it? So if you're making that kind of sound on trombone and baritone, then we need to get you on this. Tuba can play melody too. It also has pretty cool bass line. So it's a pretty cool instrument. It's a big instrument. You gotta be a little bit bigger. You don't want to be a tiny person to play a tuba. You might have trouble reaching the mouthpiece. The instrument actually sits on the seat. For me, I have to put it on top of my knee. If you're in 6th grade, you'll probably have it on the seat here, and you'll be playing that piece here. I'm a little bit bigger, so I raise it up and raise my foot up to get it to my face. And that's true of all the instruments that we play. You want to bring the instrument to you, not you go to the horn. And I'll show you how to hold the instrument and do that well. So tuba is a fun instrument. We usually only have about one in the band, like I said earlier. And the school does provide the horn, because these are a little more expensive to rent or own. So we do provide these horns for students who need a school horn. Give you some basic information about percussion. Now, if you're playing percussion, basically the definition of percussion instrument is anything that you strike or hit. We have battery instruments such as a snare drum, which has a head up on top, and then sometimes we'll have snares, which will make it rattle a little bit. You also have mallet instruments. So percussionists actually have to learn two different types of notation, and they learn a variety of instruments, which you can see behind me. I'll demonstrate a couple of them briefly as we go through here. So for snare drum, the way that we hold is with basically 2 fingers, and you have to have a fulcrum, and you're going to learn rudiments, which are sticking patterns, like you might have a paradiddle, might have flams, single stroke rolls, double stroke rolls. So you're going to learn all those different techniques playing on a snare drum. A lot of we also have timpani back here, and I don't know if you can see it back there, the 2 kettle drums back there, and the bass drum back there. So the next video I'm going to show you is our mallet instruments, and that you will read notation very similar to the wind instruments. This is a marimba. This is an example of one of our mallet instruments that we offer in the band program. We also have bells, which are made of metal, and xylophone, which is a little bit harder and doesn't resonate as much. But this marimba is one of my favorite, has a nice warm tone. It's a very big instrument, so it can go from, has 4.5 octaves to sometimes 5.5 octaves when we get to high school. And so this is a melodic instrument. You'll learn how to read notation like everyone else. And you'll be able to play melodies. I played on the other instruments. So as well as percussionists, one thing I forgot to mention when snare drum is percussionists stand almost the entire class period because you're standing to play your instruments. So you have to be able to do that. And also when you get to high school, you might be carrying a lot of equipment. So you have to be willing to be able to heft the instruments and roll them to places. So if you want to do percussion, then we'll want those dedicated students there. So it's a popular request, but make sure that you know how to be disciplined. Make sure that you are willing to learn a variety of instruments besides marimba, xylo, bells, snare drum, bass drum, timpani, crash cymbals, suspended cymbals, tambourine, clave. You're going to be learning how to play all of those different instruments. So it's a challenge, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So I hope you join us. So hi everybody, I'm going to walk around in percussion to kind of show you what we're looking at in percussion. Now I did a pretty good job of showing you snare drum and marimba in the previous video, and I would want you to look at that if you're looking at that. So I'm going to walk around and show you some of these other instruments that we have in the percussion section. So this is the marimba. It's made out of wood and it has pipes on the bottom here. You stand and play it. It has about 4 octaves. I played that earlier in the other video. This is the xylophone. This doesn't have as resonant of a sound. You can play it with rubber mallets also. A little bit different sound. And I don't have the right mallet here, but these are our bell mallets. This is a set of bells. This is the kind of drum set all of our students, and I'm going to show you over here. Sorry to make you a little bit dizzy. That is a junior percussion kit, so all of our percussion will be required to get that as a percussionist in our band. That has a set of bells and a snare drum, which I'll show you. So this set of bells is from that set, and so this is what you would practice at home in order to practice your xylo and marimba part, so it's very important to have this. I'm going to show you a couple of other instruments. We have a slapstick, we have a mark tree, which is like little chimes, we have a tambourine, we have sleigh bells, we have triangle, there's another kind of tambourine. This is suspended cymbal, which you'll know, and this is snare drum and bass drum. And so you have to learn all these different instruments as you go through here. And bass drum uses a fuzzier mallet. And pretty effective sound. And then over there is the timpani. We have 2 timpani at West Wilk Middle School. At high school we have 4. So there you have it. That is how each instrument makes a sound, and you probably have a pretty good idea that this is an instrument I want to play. So the next step is, how do I get my horn? Well, there's going to be a couple of different methods which I will share with you and your parents. We will have a instrument night in the fall, and our local company Music and Arts will come by and we'll have a rent-to-own program. That rent-to-own program means that you play a little bit each month and you will own the horn. If you decide, say for example, that you start out on flute and you want to move to tuba, then the money that you put towards flute can go over to the other instrument and you don't lose that investment. So it's a pretty good way. Plus, they have a repair and maintenance package there, which really helps out, especially as we're learning how to hold our instrument and play our instrument. My sons were in the band program, so I highly recommend that. And I'll go over that in the fall with your parents. If your parents want to get an instrument early over the summer, then I would like them to watch the next video, which will give a little bit more information on how to gauge the quality of an instrument and what brands I recommend. I highly recommend you to stick to this list because there are some instruments that are not able to be repaired by local companies and don't hold up well over time, and so quality is a big issue. So it's just like a car. You don't want to buy a bicycle if you want a car. So we want to make sure that we don't have any bicycles in the band program for an instrument. So I hope that helps, and look at the next video and we'll get you on the right path.